Taxes are due in exactly 2 months. By now, you've gathered the necessary documents and have started to do your homework, right? Well, if you still have some lingering questions about how to file this year, you've come to the right place. We'd like to welcome back our friend, CPA Thomas Spade. He's also an instructor at the College of Charleston's School of Business. Great to see you again. You gave some awesome information the last time you joined us.
Great to see you too, Leyla. And to all the viewers, I want to say Professor Spade wants you to do your homework and start getting your stuff together now.
Yes, because those 2 months go very, very fast. And, for anybody who didn't tune in to our last couple of segments a couple of weeks ago, of course, they're up on YouTube. You can watch them there. But there's still some lingering questions. We covered up to the first stimulus payment that people received. Now let's get into the second one, if you received it. So I want to remind everybody, are you going to have to pay taxes on the stimulus payments?
No, you're not going to have to pay taxes on the stimulus payments. That was essentially a tax credit which was created by Congress, and then everybody got their payments up front for that tax credit. Okay. So no, it's not taxable income.
Okay. What is taxable? The unemployment benefits that people received.
That is very taxable, yes. It's taxable at the federal level, and it's also taxable in South Carolina. So if you received unemployment benefits, unfortunately, you're going to have to pay tax on it. Hopefully, you asked the Department of Employment and Workforce to withhold some federal and state income taxes because they don't do it automatically. But just so you know, yes, those unemployment benefits you received are taxable. Hopefully by now you've received a Form 1099-G from the state of South Carolina showing how much you received in unemployment benefits. And yes, that does get reported to the IRS as well.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to stimulus payments for a moment. So how many stimulus payments, remind me, were distributed last year?
There were two.
Two of them.
There were two if you count the one that happened in January of this year. So the first one came around March, April, May, in that time frame. The second payment came generally the first week of January of 2021. Congress passed it at the last minute in 2020, and people didn't actually start receiving them until 2021. But they are factored in to calculation of what's called the recovery rebate credit on your 2020 tax return.
Okay, so you will have to document it.
Yes, you will.
This go around. Okay, that's interesting. Even though it came in this year, people still need to act as though they had received it in 2020.
Exactly.
Okay. How about deductions? We did talk about this a couple weeks ago, but a lot of people working from home, are they going to be able to deduct their household as part of their office?
Unfortunately, the home office deduction is only available for self-employed individuals. So if you get a W-2 or you just had unemployment for most of the year, you're not going to receive any sort of tax benefit for working from home.
Okay.
It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. So,
how about
but
gas?
The self-employed still get it. Gas, well, gas is going to be eligible for that tax credit that's available in South Carolina based on the number of gallons of gas that you purchased if you actually saved all of your receipts showing how many gallons were purchased. Okay. And so you report that on the South Carolina return. Now, there's nothing at the federal level based on how many gallons of gas that you purchase. Even if you use it for like job hunting or something like that, that unfortunately went away when they passed the big tax reform bill a few years ago.
Okay, let's move on to income tax credits.
Okay.
So who receives income tax credits typically?
Well, there's income tax credits available for all sorts of people. There's income tax credits available for a lot of people. In fact, everybody who got a stimulus payment got an advance payment towards an income tax credit called the recovery rebate credit. And everybody's going to have to do the paperwork on that one this year. There's child tax credit, which most people are eligible for, $2,000. Part of which can generate a refund for any child that you have that's 16 or under on December 31st when the clock strikes midnight. Now, if you have a dependent that's older than 16, then you can still get a $500 tax credit for that. There's also the earned income tax credit for lower income individuals with dependents. So there are a number of tax credits out there that a lot of people qualify for.
Okay, and it helps to actually talk to a professional in case you don't know, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and then you could be missing out on something. I want to take a break here, Thomas. When we come back, let's talk about whether or not you moved, things changed, maybe some of the mail got lost, and how you go about rectifying that, places that you can go to get your information. We'll do that in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. We've been chatting with Thomas Spade, CPA and instructor at the College of Charleston School of Business, and we've been talking about taxes. Taxes are going to be due April 15th, whether you like it or not. We were just ending the last segment on how a lot of people's lives were in a state of flux last year. A lot of people moved. You had stimulus checks. Some were direct deposited. Others were checks being sent in the mail. Things got lost. Things got changed. So in case all of this happened to you watching, Thomas, how do people go about rectifying and making sure that all their information is correct? Where do they go?
Okay, to find out how much of a stimulus payment you received, if any, then the first thing you should do is go to the IRS's website. And there is actually a link that will tell you exactly where to go, where you can click on Get My Payment. That will tell you about how much of a payment you should have received and when it was sent and how it was sent for both the first payment and the second payment. Now, if they said they were direct deposited and you don't think you got them, first thing you need to do, contact your bank. And if your banking information changed, then that's when you might want to be getting in touch with the IRS. Or you can just take the credit, the recovery rebate credit on your tax return, and that will make up for the fact that you did not receive the stimulus payment earlier. You just get a bigger tax credit on your tax return, which will either increase your refund or decrease the amount that you owe. Now, if it says that it was mailed to you and you never received it, well, if we're talking about the first stimulus payment, then there's a phone number you should call with the IRS, call them and ask them to initiate a trace on that payment. They'll find out whether or not the check was ever cashed, and they'll get back to you on what to do next. With the second payment, well, there's a couple of dates we got to be familiar with. By now, we have come close. It's actually a little bit later on this month. If you haven't received your first or your second stimulus payment and they said they mailed it to you, then you want to wait until the end of February to call them to ask them to start initiating a trace on that stimulus payment. If you moved, then you need to wait until March the 10th to contact the IRS. Why am I saying wait? Because they can't help you until those dates have passed, depending on what your situation is. In that case, they might tell you to just go ahead and claim the recovery rebate credit on your tax return. Otherwise, they might say, don't claim it on your tax return, and they're going to try to find that payment that was supposedly mailed to you.
Okay. Now, and if you call the IRS, make sure that you set aside at least a couple of hours that you're going to be waiting on hold, waiting for someone to pick up.
That's right. That I can promise you're going to be on hold for a while. So get comfy and don't wait until late at night to call them, because they have normal hours just like everybody else. So call them, get comfy, pour some coffee. You're going to need it.
Exactly. Last question for you, Thomas. Besides all the things that you need to do to get ready to file this year, is there anything that anybody can hope for? Any changes, any additional help that the government has in the pipeline that they're talking about maybe when it comes to their taxes?
Well, this whole stimulus credit thing won't be around in 2021. Thankfully, that will make it easier. And we'll be back to regularly scheduled programming already in progress about a year from now. The only problem is this year is going to be a little bit complex, but hopefully it's going to get pretty simple again next year. There's a lot of proposals out there in Congress, but it's going to take time before we find out about anything about what's actually going to happen.
All right, Thomas, thank you again. Wonderful information. And for people who missed the first couple of segments with us a couple of weeks ago, you can always go to our YouTube channel, Fox 24 News Now. Thomas Spade, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, Leyla. Thank you so much for having me.
We're back in 2 minutes.